Hi. Hi, sweet pea. Lay down. Oh, good girl. Okay. Hello, everyone. I am back today with my annual Sapphic book tier ranking video. I am so excited to do this, and this is my favorite video to film every year. I did one for 2 years now, so this is my third annual one, and I can't wait. I have 48 books to talk about with you guys, so get ready, sit back and relax, and let's go. All right, so here we go. I have all my books loaded up. So I have to say, the first book here, These Burning Stars, is the book that I am in the middle of right now. I'm filming this December 22nd, so it's not technically the end of the year yet, but I'm in the middle of it. It is a space opera with 3 point of views and 1 Sapphic couple. It's very political. It has like religion in it. I'm only like 3 chapters in, so I can't really say anything about it, but I'm enjoying it so far. I don't think it's gonna be anything less than the second rank, so I'm gonna put it there for now, but I can't say it's gonna be an absolutely A+ read because I haven't finished it yet. So it's there for now. These Burning Stars by Bethany Jacobs. Now, The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke is an absolute masterpiece. This is the first book I read this year, and it was absolutely amazing. And it is a fantasy set in an Arab and African-inspired world. It follows a princess who wants to oust her uncle from the throne that is rightfully hers. And her empire is the colonizer, or they conquered the land of the other main character, and they have a Sapphic romance, and it's very political, epic fantasy. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, it was amazing. Let's just go random order, shall we? Bookshops and Bone Dust. I really enjoyed it. It was not A+ for me, but I really enjoyed it. It is the prequel to, what is that called? Legends and Lattes, which was an A+ read for me. The prequel, it was good, but it wasn't on the same level as Legends and Lattes for me. So unfortunately, yeah, that's unfortunate for me because I did really want it to be amazing, but it's still really good. I just think that even though it's a cozy fantasy and it's supposed to be low stakes, the stakes really weren't there because you knew what was going to happen later on anyway, because this is a prequel. So yeah, the stakes just weren't there for me, but that's okay. Let's see. The Space Between Worlds is a Sapphic sci-fi book about a girl who has the ability to travel to different dimensions. There's like a multiverse, and you're only able to travel there if your counterpart has died. And she just happens to be able to travel to most other universes because of her life situation. And she's used by a space corporation to do that. I just felt like I wasn't, I had really high hopes for this one. I thought it was going to be a 5-star for me. I just wasn't really sucked in. I didn't care about the characters at all. And to me, the characters are the most important part of a book. And I really liked the premise, but I just didn't care about the characters at all. I don't even remember their names. So yeah, it's gonna be not the best, not the worst. You know, it could have been better. Let's go for a recent read. The Light Pirate was surprising in that it was Sapphic. I did not expect that. It wasn't in any reviews or synopses I found, but at the end it is Sapphic, and I was like, oh, okay, there's a little Sapphic romance in here that I didn't expect. I liked it anyway, but then I was like, wow, this is such a pleasant surprise. So I was very, very happy. This follows a girl named Wanda who was born during a really bad hurricane in Florida. And this is a sci-fi cli-fi type of thing. It's a climate disaster dystopian. And she lives in a world as she grows up that Florida is basically sinking below sea level. because of climate change, and she's a very interesting, resilient character to follow, and I just really loved her journey. I loved Lily Brooks Dalton. She also wrote Good Morning Midnight, which I really liked this year as well, and she just is really good at creating dystopian worlds that are believable. Like, yeah, climate change is happening, but it's not at the level of where it is in this book. And it's kind of believable to see how society devolves or evolves to deal with it. So this was a very good book. I really enjoyed it. Let's go to, all right, Yours for the Taking. It's also not the best, not the worst. I rated this a 3. It's another dystopian cli-fi. I'm kind of into cli-fi right now. It was okay. I do love all the queer rep that it had. It was very sapphic, had non-binary representation, trans representation, which was great. But it was very ambitious for a debut. There were a lot of different storylines going on at the same time. There were a lot of very serious topics that Gabrielle Korn took on in this narrative, and I just felt like it wasn't quite successful. I wrote in my review, something rubbed me the wrong way about the book, but I just can't put my finger on what it was. The premise is that there is the inside, which is a series of like buildings and interconnected corridors built in New York City, and during the climate disaster, things are, becoming a dumpster fire, and people can apply to get inside and live inside instead of on the dying earth. And the trick is that only women are allowed inside, but they don't divulge that fact when people are applying. So it kind of is critiquing like the idea of a matriarchal society versus a patriarchal society. It is quite an interesting premise, but again, I just don't think it was super successful for me. And also, it is advertised as adult. It feels extremely YA. So that's just another little caveat I have with it. All right, well, let's do another A+ one. Feed Them Silence by Lee Mandello. This was weird, and I loved it. It was weird in the best way. If you like Wolf's Rain, the anime, you love this book. This is about a scientist who is in a failing marriage, and she is developing this technology where she can kind of neural link with wolves, the last remaining wolf pack, and it is just stunning. Like, it sucked me in from the very first page. It's a novella, and it just did so much with the little time that it had. It was just absolutely amazing, and I loved it. I have a signed copy because I'm obsessed with it. Okay, so I think if you know my channel, you're very familiar with my thoughts on Sorry Bro. This is a adult sapphic rom-com, but it's not funny. I hated this book. I read it for my failed sapphic book club, which didn't continue, but it was just not good. I rated it a 2, but I really did not enjoy reading it at all. And simply because the main character is terrible. She treats everyone around her so horribly, including the love interest, and she just didn't deserve the love interest. Like, she was horrible to her, and I don't believe in the romance. I don't think that they're going to stay together, and I don't think they should stay together. And also, they made a really hateful comment towards Taylor Swift, and I just don't think in this day and age that was necessary. It felt very like 2010 core. I don't know. I liked the Armenian representation, but that was all I liked about it. Let's go to If Tomorrow Doesn't Come, which is in the really enjoyed category. This is a YA dystopian that is severely underrated and overlooked. I really don't see this anywhere, and it really needs to be somewhere because it's so good. If I had read this as a teenager, I would have been absolutely obsessed with it. It would have been my favorite book of all time. As it is, I still really, really enjoyed it. It's about this girl. She has a lot of Catholic guilt, a lot of problems with depression, and trigger warning for suicide. There is suicide in this book. It's just amazing. And so she is queer, and she has her Catholic guilt because of her family growing up Irish Catholic. And there's also the fact that there's an asteroid hurtling towards Earth. And she has to, you know, see her best friend one more time, and they fall in love, and it's really, really good. I loved it. I really, really loved it. All right, so let's see. All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. This one was also a surprise Sapphic book. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but it's a surprise Sapphic book. It wasn't great, but it wasn't the worst. So it's very heavily based on the JonBenet Ramsey true crime case, which is why I feel a little bit like icky about it, because it was so obviously based on it, and it's like that's a real crime with real people involved and affected by it. But it's a book basically about that very same case, except fictionalized, and it was good. It's by a podcaster. It's by a podcaster that I listen to, and I would read something else that she puts out. You know, I didn't hate it. Let's get into a nonfiction. Hey, The Race to Be Myself by Caster Semenya. I absolutely loved this book. She has a wife, which is amazing, and she's a really, really interesting athlete to follow, Chickpea, right? She is an 800-meter race runner, and she was the South African girl who was banned from running because of her high levels of testosterone. So definitely don't miss that memoir if you're into athletic memoirs. Let's also see. Okay, so we have a few sequels here that I want to get into. Let's see The Battle Drum. 5 stars, hands down. It's the second book in the Burning Embers trilogy, or the Burning Empire trilogy, or something like that. The first book was The Final Strife by Sarah El-Arifi. This book was amazing, if not better, if that's possible. This book was over 500 pages. I read it on a NetGalley ebook on my phone. And if you know me, you know I hate reading ebooks because it hurts my eyes. And I literally read it in like 24 hours. It was amazing. So if you haven't started that series yet, I don't know where you've been, but you really need to. It is necessary Sapphic fantasy reading. Another Sapphic fantasy that is very popular, but I didn't love, is A Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark. I've read some of his novellas, and I did like them, and I liked this, but it wasn't for me. I don't know, it wasn't my favorite thing. It was a fantasy mystery, and I think the reason why it wasn't my favorite thing, well, there's a few reasons, but one of them is that it's set in a very Victorian, what is that word? Steampunk world, in an alternate 1920s Cairo. I don't like steampunk, so I was kind of already set up to fail with this, unfortunately. And also I just felt like the mystery took too long to happen. The book was a little too long. It could have happened faster. And I don't think the main character was very smart. Like, she wasn't smart enough to solve a mystery. So that's what I felt. Yeah, I didn't really love the main character or any of the characters. They weren't super memorable to me, but it had very interesting and fantastical elements. All right, now I want to talk about We Deserve Monuments by Jess Hammonds. This was one of my favorite books of the year, so you'll see it in that upcoming video. This is a YA contemporary mystery. There's a lot of different things happening in this book. So basically it follows a girl who's half black, half white, and she has to move down to Georgia for the summer to spend time with her estranged grandmother who is dying of breast cancer. And their family doesn't know their grandmother because her mother doesn't speak to her, but since her grandmother is dying, they felt like they had to reconnect with her, and they live with her. And seeing the main character and her grandmother's relationship become closer over time and then end so bittersweetly, it was really, really sad. It was very tragic, but this was one of the best books I've ever read, to be quite honest with you. Definitely one of the best books of the year, but I think it's definitely up there in all books that I've read. It's one of the best, so don't miss this one. All right, let's see. You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight was a campy slasher set on a pretend summer camp. So this main character, she works at a like kind of a haunted house, but it's not a house, it's a summer camp. It's that vibe. So like it's all fake, but then as they're working there, it turns out there is a real slasher coming for them. It was a very interesting premise. I liked that it was very casually sapphic, and that wasn't the focus of the story, but I didn't like the ending of it. So yeah, I didn't like the ending of it, and it goes in kind of a weird direction that I wasn't anticipating and that I didn't really love. So it was good. I'm definitely still going to read by Kailyn Barron. I really love her writing. The Poison Heart was one of my favorite books ever. So I'm definitely going to read more from her, but yeah, this one was fine. All right, now we have Just As You Are. I don't know where to put this one. I think I'm going to put it in Not the Best, Not the Worst. It is a rom-com, and it's a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, which is something that I absolutely adore. So it has that going for it. But I think that I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was going to be like a 4 or 5 star, but then the third act breakup happened, and it was just such a melodramatic, over the top miscommunication. And it's just like, come on, like what are you doing? So basically the premise is that the main character works for this struggling LGBT magazine in New York City, and the Darcy character comes, and she's one of the investors who's going to help save it. And they hate each other, of course, in the beginning, and then they fall in love, just like Pride and Prejudice. It was good, but I just couldn't deal with all the miscommunication, and it's just like, just talk to each other. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, not the best, but not the worst. Ooh, okay. Lucky Red, I really enjoyed. This was a surprise for me. This is a Western about a girl who, her dad dies, and she ends up getting taken in by a brothel in the Old West, and she becomes a sex worker. And this book was very sex worker positive, which was awesome. You know, she's not ashamed of it at all, and I loved the other girls who work with her as well, all their different personalities. It was so well done. Their personalities were so vibrant. I really loved it. And the Sapphic romance in there, oh my god, it was woo! It was really good, and also like shocking. There were a lot of twists and turns in this book, and I really liked the ending too. So this was absolutely a very pleasant surprise for me, and I highly recommend it. Okay, another recent read is Mennewood by Nicola Griffith, and this is the sequel to Hild, which is a medieval historical fantasy. This book came out, I think it's now been like 10 years since Hild came out, and I didn't remember anything from Hild. I did read it. I was way too young to read it, by the way. But I didn't remember anything about it, and I still absolutely adored Mennewood. This book was so it like made you feel like you were in a medieval British forest, like sitting down on the moss and it's damp and you can smell the soil and like you're eating stale bread and hard cheeses as you're like training for a war. It was so vibrant. It was really, really good. And the Sapphicness of it was great. Hild is bisexual and I loved it. I really, really loved it. If you're into long, it's very long. I think it's over 700 pages. Epic historical fantasies. Don't miss this one. It is so worth it. It's so, so good. Oh my God. Let's go for Shoot the Moon by Issa Arsen. I really enjoyed it. This also features a bisexual main character, and it is a historical fiction with a tiny bit of sci-fi in there. So Shoot the Moon is about this woman who named Annie, who works for NASA in the 60s as a secretary, but she also studied astronomy in university, and she catches some mistakes in their paperwork, and she becomes one of the only women to work for NASA in like a big way, like on the actual rockets and stuff. And that part was interesting. The two romances that she has were also very well done. I really liked the little sci-fi twist at the end, and I really loved how the timeline was kind of jumbled. So you often flash back to her childhood, and you get to see her relationship with her mother and father and how that changes over time. That was the most interesting part of the book for me. So I really, really liked this one. He Who Drowned the World is another sequel. It's by Shelley Parker Chan. It's the final set of the duology, She Who Became the Sun. I loved this. I mean, what else is there to say about it? I loved it from start to finish. From the very first word to the very last period at the end of the sentence. It was amazing. I really loved how Ju's wife became a really big part of the plot towards the end of the book. I really, really loved it. Yeah, I just love this one. The Hills of Estrella Roja, I think, is the only graphic novel I have on here. Yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed it. No, I enjoyed it. It is a cute graphic novel set in Texas or New Mexico. It's set in New Mexico, about a paranormal podcaster who travels to this town where mysterious things happen, and she meets a girl there whose family is from there, and they discover the secrets of their family and of the town. And it's really, really cute. My gripe with it is that the romance kind of happened very fast, but it is YA, so that happens sometimes. I really loved the art style and the coloring. It was very good. Very nice little graphic novel. Chlorine! Absolutely A+. This was so cool, and it really should have won awards this year. By Jade Song. Chlorine is just one of the weirdest and most interesting books I've ever read. It's about this Chinese American girl who feels very isolated and othered by her peers, but she becomes obsessed with swimming, and she starts to swim in school and competitively, and she becomes so obsessed with it, it becomes her whole entire life, and it becomes her sense of self-worth. It's very attached to swimming. And this is a horror novel. It really, really devolves into something very horrific at the end, and that's all I can say. All I can say is that she is also obsessed with mermaids, so that's what will end it. Yeah, it was really, really good. I really loved it. The Mimicking of Known Successes. I'm gonna put here, The Mimicking of Known Successes is a sci-fi novella, and it's very much in the vein of, what is that podcast? The Penumbra podcast. It is set on Jupiter when humanity colonizes it, and which is already kind of interesting. I really like that. And it's a sci-fi mystery. So it's very hard-boiled detective kind of thing, which I should have known. I don't really love that kind of mystery. I like mystery plots, but I don't love mysteries generally that involve like a hard-boiled detective kind of thing. And this is also a second chance romance. They come back together to work together on the case, and then they realize that they still have feelings together, and it was good. I liked it. I am going to pick up the sequel to it. So I liked it enough for that, yeah, but it was good. I just think that my favorite part of it was the world building of the colony on Jupiter, and there just wasn't enough of that. I really wanted more of that world building. So that was my gripe with it. All right, Land of Milk and Honey. The first only liked it because it was Sapphic one. This is by Sipam Jung, and this is her sophomore novel, I believe. And it's another Cli-Fi. He sets a theme. I really liked Cli-Fi this year. It was okay, but if it wasn't Sapphic, I would not have liked it as much as I did. It's about a chef who, during basically the end of the world, you know, the world is falling apart, there's smog everywhere, food crops are dying, and the whole world is going to be starving. She's a chef, like a classically trained chef, and she loses her job, and then she finds this job listing for a French trained chef on the top of this mountain in Italy, and she's like, what? So she applies, and it's like this safe haven for rich people, and they're going to build a ship for them to go into space and survive the end of the world. And it's weird. It's definitely very weird. It's very short though. I liked all of the food descriptions in it. It made me very hungry. And I did appreciate that it was Sapphic, but that's really all I liked about it. The Tyrant Baru Cormorant is the third book of the Baru Cormorant series by Seth Dickinson. And I had been holding off on reading this for as long as I could because I'm still so upset that there's no fourth book and the series isn't over. So I didn't want to finish what was already published until the fourth book at least had a release date, but I couldn't wait. And this is the longest book in the series, but oh my god, it was so good. It was so good. It was amazing. Since it's the third book, I can't really explain to you the plot, but Baru is just becoming more and more ruthless, and she begins to really question whether or not she is actually the villain in this, even though her original goal, so the original story of the first book is that Baru becomes an accountant for the empire that conquered and colonized her homeland, and she wants to take it over from the inside and like kill this empire from the inside. So she's like a double agent. But as she's working for the evil empire, does she become evil herself? You know, that's the big question. And it's just so good. She is just the best character I've ever read in my life, or one of them anyway. And I need more Baru. Please, Seth, please give us the fourth and final book of Baru Cormorant. When that comes out, I'm throwing a party, I swear to God. All right. Let's go with another hard-boiled detective. Even though I knew the end, by C.L. Polk. Yeah, I only liked it because it was Sapphic. If it wasn't Sapphic, I would not have even finished this book, to be quite honest with you. It is a fantasy novella. I don't even remember what it's about. It's set in Chicago in like the 30s or something like that. And the main character makes a deal with some kind of demon or something. And after a certain amount of time, I think 10 years, then she has to give up her soul. The romance was very sweet, but as you can tell, I didn't really care about the plot that much. So, and I guess she's not really a detective. She's more of like I don't know. She's not a detective. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, even though I knew the end, a little bit forgettable, unfortunately. But cute romance. All right. Let's do both of these at once. Ashford Parker Doesn't Fail and Iris Kelly Doesn't Date Not the best, but not the worst. I love Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Loved it. 5 stars. These two, though, a little bit disappointing. Of course, it's going to be hard to live up to the name of Delilah Green. But while I did enjoy these, they were not as good. I mean, that's all I can say. Yeah, Ashford Parker is Delilah's stepsister, and Iris is their best friend throughout the other 2 books. And the romances in here just weren't as convincing as in Delilah. And I think that the little conflict that has to always happen in adult rom-coms were very contrived in these 2. Whereas in Delilah, it was more believable. Yeah, so I enjoyed these, but they weren't amazing for me. All right, so let's move on to Girl, Woman, Other, which I'm gonna put it in really enjoyed. This is a book of separate vignettes of lives of Black women and non-binary people in Britain, and they all come together at the end. And I did really enjoy this. I think it absolutely deserves all of the acclaim and prizes that it has won. So that's really all you need to know, to be honest. I should have picked this up much earlier. It was very, very well done, very good. The Splinter in the Sky, perfect, amazing, my favorite book of the year. My favorite book of the year, no question. This is a Sapphic space opera about a tea shop owner, or an aspiring tea shop owner, who gets sucked into being a political spy for this evil empire that colonized her homeland in order to save her sibling. And it was just absolutely stunning. Amazing Sapphic romance, amazing. I just love it. If it's Sapphic, if it's a space opera, if there's tea involved and it has anti-colonialist themes, like, that is just a recipe for a book that I'm gonna love. And I loved it. And more people should love it, because I can't believe it has such a low rating on Goodreads. I don't understand why. It is just simply stunning and one of the best books I have ever read. Into the Bright Open. Not the best, not the worst. It's a YA retelling of Secret Garden by Sherry D. Maline, and it's Sapphic, obviously. It also has Indigenous characters. I have to be honest, I've never read The Secret Garden, but it basically follows the plot exactly. I just felt like the main character was fleshed out, but nobody else was. Some of them kind of fall into stereotypes, and it was fine. It was very short. Yeah, it was fine. I feel like this remixed series, it's all YA, but a lot of them are often very juvenile. Like, this really felt middle grade, to be honest with you. The main character was, I think, supposed to almost be 16, but she read more like a 12-year-old, and I'm not exaggerating that. So that's the main reason why I was like not super into it, because I felt like it was mismarketed a little bit. All right, ooh, we're down to the last row. All right, I'm gonna put The Daughters of Izdihar down here because I DNF'd it. I don't think it's bad. I just could not for the life of me get into it. I thought the magic system was cool. I thought the setting was cool. I just could not get into it. I'm so sorry. Definitely look it up if you're interested in it. It's by an Egyptian author, and it has interesting elemental magic, kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender. But I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I'm so sorry. Let's see. How Far the Light Reaches is another nonfiction. It's an essay collection by a mixed-race queer author about 10 different, I think, or at least a bunch of different sea creatures. So if you're into marine bio or just the ocean in general, definitely pick this one up. And the author compares these sea creatures with parts of their life. and it's very, very well done. I like it. I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast Is Me by Jameson Shea was a surprise. 5-star for me. I loved this book. Loved it. I don't know what about it. It just hit all my buttons that I needed it to hit. First of all, stunning cover. So this is set in Paris, and this girl on the cover is part of the Paris Ballet School, whatever you call it. So she's a ballerina, or an aspiring one. But of course she's Black, she came from a poor background, and she is not well liked by her peers. She is always held to a higher standard than everyone else. She has to work twice as hard. And I really loved that criticism of the ballet industry. But this is also a horror book. She finds a demon creature, or at least a horrific creature, down in the Paris catacombs. And she makes a deal with it to become the most well-loved prima ballerina in the world, in exchange for something though, of course. So it is so good. I loved it. Yeah, I don't miss this one. It's so severely underrated. It's so good. It was so creepy. Loved the whole vibes of it from start to finish. I really loved seeing this main character kind of become a villain. It was just awesome. I loved it. All right, we're gonna go with The Genesis of Misery next by Neon Yang. And everyone who doesn't like this book is wrong. That's all I'm gonna say. This was very, very good. I did want it to be a 5-star for me. It wasn't, it was only a 4-star, but it was very, very good. It's in the same vein as Iron Widow with the mechas, okay? It has mechas in it. I feel like it's very heavily inspired by Evangelion, and it's also a retelling of the story of Joan of Arc, except in space with a non-binary protagonist. What more could you want? I mean, come on. I'm a sucker for historical or religious stories retold in space. That's like a very specific niche that I really love in literature, so I loved this book. It needs more hype. The Puppet Master is a short story by Kemi Ashingiwa, the same author of The Splinter in the Sky. It's free to read on Tor.com, I believe, and it is amazing. It's really, really good, and it's like 1,000 words. It's like really short, so just pause my video and go read it and then come back, okay? It's amazing. I don't know how Kemi got so much world building and character development to fit in a tiny, tiny story like this, but somehow she did it. I don't know how, but she did. Bianca Torre is Afraid of Everything. I really enjoyed. It was kind of a little bit of a, I don't want to say a mess, but it was like a fun mess. I don't know, it was fun. Bianca Torre is this person racked with anxiety, and that was very relatable. And they're non-binary, and you get to see their progression throughout the story of realizing their identity and accepting their identity. I really enjoyed it. It's a murder mystery. So one day they're in their room spying on their neighbor with a telescope, and they witness his murder. And they're like the only witness, and they don't know what to do because it was creepy that they were watching him, but also it was just like their hobby to people watch outside their window with a telescope. But they're the only witness, so they feel like they have to go to the police, and the police rule it as a suicide, but they know that it's not a suicide. So very interesting stuff. And then there's this whole other part of the story where they join a bird watching club, and there's a cult involved, and it was really good. It was like, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but it was really enjoyable. And this author also has another book coming out in 2024 that I am super excited about, and I'm going to talk about that in a video coming out about my 5-star predictions, so look forward to that. A Guide to the Dark. I only liked it because it was Sapphic. These two girls are going on a road trip to visit the colleges that they've applied to, and they're best friends, and one of them, her whole personality is that she's in love with her best friend, and she's like hemming and hawing about whether she wants to say it, and it's like, girl, what are you doing? Like, that was her whole personality. I thought that their voices were quite similar to each other. It was hard to differentiate their voices. The one thing I did like was the other girl's backstory. She had a very tragic backstory about her younger brother and his death. And I also really liked the Tunisian rep in this book. And yeah, the whole premise is that it's a horror book, and on their road trip, their car breaks down or they get into an accident, and they have to stay in this creepy motel, and things happen in the motel room that are creepy. Yeah, it was okay. I really wish it had been better. Tahoe is an A+ Sapphic read. This is a very queer, very indigenous collection of short stories that all meld together. And the author is of Coast Salish and Maori descent, and they combine their two cultures and create some really, really wonderful stories in this book. I see nobody talking about it, and it really needs more hype. It is so stellar, so stunning. The Day of Fallen Night is also amazing. This is the prequel to Priory of the Orange Tree, and it was even better than Priory. Priory I rated 4 stars, this I rated 5. It was absolutely stunning. My problem with Priory is that I found all of the characters and point of views very difficult and confusing, even though I liked the story. But with Day of Fallen Night, even though there were 4 point of views, I didn't get confused by them at all. They were all very, very different from each other, followed different stories and very different voices in the characters. And that made it much easier for me to follow. And everything about this book, I loved. It's one of my best books of the year. It was so good. If you haven't read Priory, I mean, that is a Sapphic fantasy classic. You gotta read Priory, and then you gotta read this one because it's amazing. All right, another sequel. I read a lot of sequels this year, is The Faithless by C.L. Clarke, the sequel to The Unbroken. And it was just as amazing, just as amazing. I can't wait for the 3rd one to come out. It's called The Sovereign, and it should come out hopefully, I think towards the second half of this year, of 2024, I mean. Hopefully we don't have to wait until 2025, but I don't know yet. You Don't Have a Shot. I was quite disappointed with this one, gonna be honest, because I loved Ophelia After All, which is Raquel Marie's debut. This is her sophomore novel. I will read more from her because Ophelia After All was one of my favorite books last year, and I absolutely loved it. But You Don't Have a Shot, I was so disappointed because I love gay sports books, and this was just really disappointing. It's about 2 soccer rivals who end up going to the same summer soccer camp, and they're put on the same team even though they hate each other, and they have to learn to work together in order to win this tournament and get scouted by soccer coaches from universities. But there is this weird, again, this 3rd act breakup, but also it wasn't just a breakup. Like, the main character loses literally all of her friends over a miscommunication, and she was basically set up, and it was just it really made me angry, because it's just like, if these characters would just get it together and learn how to talk to each other, or at least listen to her when she's saying something, like, it would be nice. It really made me angry, and it just was not believable at all. I did not like that part. And as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, like, this went from being pretty good, like really enjoyed, to all the way down here. Yeah, if it wasn't Sapphic, I would not have liked it as much as I did. Yellow Jessamine, a novella that I don't even remember. I DNF'd it, gotta be honest. It is a dark novella about a plague in like Victorian London. It was okay, but I don't remember it, and I wouldn't, like, I don't have no reason to recommend it to anyone. It just wasn't memorable, unfortunately. Yeah, very sad. Briefly a Delicious Life is a weird premise for a book, but it was very good, very interesting. This follows the ghost of a girl who falls in love with the wife of, I think it's Chopin. Yes, it's Chopin, and his wife was George Sand, who's a famous novelist apparently. Yeah, so it had this speculative element with the ghost. It wasn't a horror, but she falls in love with this wife, and she basically follows their family, and we get to see their family through her eyes, and also flash back to her life before she died and why she died. Quite interesting. I know it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but I really enjoyed it. I liked the blend of genre. To Shape a Dragon's Death is a native fantasy book. It's going to be a trilogy, and it's queer, but also perhaps poly, which would be cool. It's about a native girl who bonds with a dragon, and she's forced by the colonizers to attend their dragon school because they don't think that she can handle the dragon correctly. They have very different ways of dealing with dragons, and she's forced to attend their school, otherwise her dragon will be taken away from her and killed. It's very good. It deserves all the hype it's gotten, and it deserves more hype. Yeah, if you're into dragon writing schools, definitely pick this one up. Very, very good. All right, we're getting to the end. I'm so tired, but this was great. Some Desperate Glory. I loved it. I know not everyone liked it, but I did. I am a sucker. One of my favorite tropes is when someone who is working for what they think is right and what they think is good, but in reality, the society, the empire, or the organization that they're working for is the evil doer. And they find out that they're the evildoer, and they feel very conflicted, but then they're like, you know what, I have to stand against them. That's one of my favorite tropes, and this does it very, very well. Shelley Parker Chan actually blurbed this book, and they said that this is for people who liked Ender's Game, but Ender's Game didn't like back. So it's for the queers who love sci-fi. And it's very good. Being sapphic, it is sapphic, but it's not a big part of the story at all. So don't expect it to be like a romance sci-fi. It's strictly a sci-fi space opera, a little bit of a military as well. It's very good. Very, very good. Really liked it. Frontier. I really enjoyed this one. This is by Grace Curtis. It was quite short. This is for fans of Firefly. And it is a space western, I guess, which I absolutely adore. And I really, really liked it. Grace Curtis is coming out with another book in 2024 called The Floating Hotel, which sounds like a very cozy sci-fi. And I can't wait for that. That's going to be really good, I can tell. And then Where Echoes Lie. I think I'm going to put that in really enjoyed as well. This was a very complex YA horror. About these two girls who go to this small town in Arizona where their mother died, and they think that this town had something to do with their mother's death, and this one girl is really obsessed with it. The town is super small and definitely seems to be hiding something, and there's cults involved, and there's a little bit of supernatural twist involved. And the Sapphic romance, though, is so good. My complaint with Courtney Gould's first book, I forget what it's called, Where the Dark Descends or something like that, is that the Sapphic romance was very insta-love. Very, very, very insta-love. And that I did not like that. But Where Echoes Die, the Sapphic romance kind of took a backseat to the actual plot of the story, but it was still, it was there, and you could really feel it. And it was not insta-love. It felt very natural, and I really liked it, and I'm absolutely going to check out more from Courtney Gould when she comes out with more books. All right, so that is it for this year's Sapphic tier ranking. I hope you enjoyed. I know I did. A lot of really, really good books this year. Yeah, not so many books that I didn't enjoy, so I'm really happy about that. And honestly, with my 2024 plans and with all the books that I know of coming out in 2024, definitely look forward to my next year's video of this because it's gonna be good. There are so many good Sapphic books coming out next year. I just cannot wait. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!